Right, welcome back and thank you for staying with Business Today. Now today we are discussing about imbalance in trade, and we are focusing on especially international trade, and with me is Onchari Oyeyo, who is the CEO, Center for African Progress, that is CAP. Thank you so much for sticking with us.
Thank you.
All right, before we went for break, we were speaking about the imbalance that we have, especially when we look at the African countries and how we are trading with the globe. And now let us look at BRICS, the BRICS summit that usually happens every year. And we have all these leaders, business leaders who come, the stakeholders in, and the players in the business industry, and also from different countries that come together to discuss about the way forwards when it comes to businesses. So first of all, the BRICS summit, does it have the best interest of the African countries, or what is it all about?
Thank you so much. Number one, I don't think they have the best interests of the African countries. You realize when they met for the first time, way back in 2009, it was Brazil, there was Russia, there was India, right, and China. So South Africa came in much later. So the initial grouping did not have an African country at all.
Yes.
So if they could not invite Africans to join them, then I don't think we have any reason to think that they had our best interests in their group. Obviously, now the number's gone up. The Ethiopians joined, and I don't think many other African countries have warmed up to the club. We've seen Iran, or, the UAE and stuff like that. So number one, they don't have our best interests as far as because it has to be practical. If you're going to be useful to me, then it's not about what you tell me, it's about what you do. Yeah, number one. Number two, there's no way they can have the best interests of African countries when they don't even do business with them among themselves in any substantial way. When you look at, for example, India, most of the exports from India go to the United States, not to China, not to Russia, not to Brazil, right? So if they're not trading amongst themselves in any substantial way, which of course is an indication of economic strength or economic integration, then it doesn't mean, it actually means they cannot have anything useful for us as Africans. And they've not gotten to a point where they have the strength that can boost African economies or African trade in any reasonable way. And like a few days ago, I saw the South Africans have gotten some opening to export beef to Saudi Arabia, something they would have gotten even without going through BRICS.
Yes.
So it's not something to be excited about. It's not a reason to actually see strength in BRICS. Like you said, obviously your reasons might be different, but BRICS is a stillbirth, if you ask me economically.
Yes.
It's a stillbirth.
Okay.
It's a talking club. They'll keep on talking at, as a counter to the dollar, but I don't think there's anything there. Yes.
Right, and also still on BRICS, we saw last year a lot of controversy, especially for the countries that wanted to join, others were not allowed to join. There was all that controversy, and they came to South Africa. So this year, when you look at the summit, what are we expecting in terms of what will shape the conversations that are going to be had there, and from just your perspective?
Well, I expect a lot of noise about the potential, the reason why they should become strong so as to counter the dollar. But there's a difference between purposeful, deliberate action and being reactionary. You look at something, you don't like it, then you decide to just be mischievous or rebellious to send a message. We don't have that kind of strength. BRICS doesn't have that kind of strength to counter the dollar. So it's going to be a venting club where guys can meet and complain about how the US is mistreating the global, space, making a lot of noise and bullying others. But then they don't have any substantive plan to come up with, for example, a currency which can counter the dollar. So, and for as long as the dollar is the dominant currency of trade, we expect the Americans to continue dominating. And one of the maybe beautiful things we have to be happy about is the humanitarian side of the Western-led economic order, which of course does not pay so much attention to just money, but they come in and they insist on democracy and they insist on human rights, something we don't see when, for example, India is involved, when Russia is involved, when the Chinese are involved. As we speak now, given what's going on in Ukraine, given the atrocities, the cruelty which the Russians are unleashing on Ukrainians, India continues to actually buy Russian oil, despite sanctions by the United States, by the European Union, which were meant to, weaken Russia so as to protect the lives of what? Ukrainians. So that kind of humanitarian side is not evident in the BRICS operations. Yeah, and throughout human history, the moment you come in and just focus on resources and enriching yourself at the expense of human rights and other things, you don't last long. So that's another reason why I think BRICS doesn't have a future, if you ask me.
Okay.
Yeah, so South Africa can pretend, to be looking the other way, but I don't think it's going to last long. At the end of the day, they have to coil back and join the dominant global economic order.
All right.
Yes.
Away from BRICS,
Yes.
Let us look at something else before we even conclude the conversation. Now, the Africa Free Trade Area, the
Yes.
AFCFTA.
Yes.
How does it come in? Is it really protecting the interests of us as African countries? And is it going? Because Russia looks like a very strong when it comes to taking the minerals and everything else. It looks like the PMCs and also the Wagner Group.
Yes.
They are really strong. They are all over the place. So Africa Free Trade Area, when you look at it, how does it come in? Does it come in to protect our interests, or is it going to be put down by the PMCs?
Well, when you look at the Wagner Group, their presence is in Sudan, it's in Libya, it's in Mali, it's in CR, that is Central African Republic. And so I could not say it's all over the continent. And then, of course, the Africa Free Trade Area is a good idea. The number of African countries which have what I'd say sufficiently strong democracies that can stand the test of interference is high. Look at South Africa; it's strong enough. Kenya, we're doing well. So the PMC, the Wagner Group, will not be all over in as much as they've set foot in some places here and there. And the African Free Trade Area comes in for the interest of African trade, and we expect them to actually keep on supporting countries like the DRC, which is full of resources. Because I'm sure they've gotten, from the conversations our presidents have been having, they've gotten to learn that the resources in Africa and African countries will form the base for the movement of the continent in terms of what? Economic progress. So I think the conversation is good and the actions being taken is good. We've talked about supporting what we call regional trading blocks. We have the East African, community. There is we have SADC, we have ECOWAS. Those blocks are being strengthened, and then from there now, the entire continent will be together and doing what? Boosting trade. We're talking about intercontinental trade, and once that has been solidified, now we'll have the strong footing to trade with the rest of the world. So the steps are baby steps, but we're heading somewhere.
All right, thank you so much. Onchari Ayeyo there, speaking to us about imbalance in trade, and the Africa Free Trade Area is coming in to try and sort of solve a little bit of the problems that we have when it comes to how we trade with the globe. And he's the CEO, Center for African Progress, that is CAP. And we've come to the end of this conversation. But before we close business today, I'm going to leave you with this